Well, this one's the 900-pound gorilla in the room, of course. This is the thing that is taking up a lot of time, a lot of everybody's focus. That's Huanglongbing. Huanglongbing, yeah. This is the psyllid-transmitted citrus disease. That's the worst disease of citrus there is. It's caused by a bacterium. That's the bacterium right up there, the long view and then the cross-section view. It's microscopic. You won't ever see it without an electron microscope. It's really, really tiny. That's why it can be transmitted, you know, in the psyllid's mouth parts. It's that tiny. That sample is from the first and only, so far, find of it ever found in California of the disease. That's from Los Angeles County, the one tree that was there. And they left it in the ground once they found it for a couple of days. And then they ripped it out and made it go away really fast.
What do you suppose they did with the wood?
I think it got crunched up pretty good. Well, a lot of samples went north. This was in, and this is where we expect to find the disease if we're going to for the first time. This was in a lady's backyard. And she was in a church garden group. And it had been grafted like 20 times. Her gardener guy, who was also in the church group, was grafting it with different varieties, and he put like 20 different things on this one tree. And so one of them along the way was infected with the disease. And then they were taking cuttings off of it and giving it to their friends in the gardening group. So that then when you get something like this, you trace back and trace forward on the regulatory side. So you trace back, try to find out where it came from originally, and then you trace forward to find out where any cuttings went from that tree and, you know, what they might have got grafted onto. And so you can see these things can get spread around very, very quickly. But as far as we know so far, that's the only one tree that's had. Yeah, it had the bugs too, I think. Yeah, because I think they found it during the trapping.
That's how they found the disease, was they found a bug, they tested the bug for the disease, then they went back to the tree and found the disease.
Yeah. When they're getting good psyllids that are fresh in the trap, they're sending them to the state lab for testing for the disease, because they're like the good little screeners. Finding the disease is pretty hard. As you can tell, the symptoms aren't real diagnostic. You know, it could be nutrient deficiency, it could be root rot, it could be gopher damage. It's really indistinct. Although the pathologists up there told me when they saw the samples for real, as soon as they saw it, they were like, oh, this is it. This is it. When they, yeah. So, yes.
You don't have any of that up here, do you?
No. No, unfortunately, no. Probably. No, they said this, as soon as they knew it, it was, you know, they could tell that it was something different that you'd never seen before. But all of the pictures are pretty indistinct. But the one thing to watch for is that symptoms are asymmetrical. Now, somebody just brought me up during the break a sample of their citrus leaf, and it looked like it was hungry, it had nutrient deficiency symptoms, and that leaf was the yellowing on it was very symmetrical. One side and the other matching side on it were matching, but on Huanglongbing infected leaves, it's not symmetrical. So that would be one clue to look for.
Were they able to find out where that cutting came from with 20 different
grafts? Yeah. Well, I don't think they were exactly admitting to where it came from, but we suspect it was smuggled in from Asia, somewhere. You know, people go visit the homeland and then they just have to smuggle back a cutting, and I don't know why you wouldn't want to make sure that the cutting is disease-free, but if you're going to bother to smuggle something, at least get it healthy, you know. But it wasn't. So that's what they had. But that tree is now gone. The neighborhood has been tested and retested, and you know the psyllids have been treated. So we're hoping we dodged a bullet for this one, but we know it's just a matter of time. Other symptoms about this disease, the twigs will be very upright, or can be very, very upright in their growth. Again, odd kinds of yellowing sometimes. Now that could be nutrient deficiency too. So it's hard to tell. Twig dieback. Fruit symptoms. The fruit will be also asymmetrical. You know, when you cut it open, it's not going to be straight through. It's going to be it's just going to be different. It's going to taste terrible because this interferes with sugar transport in the plant because it's a disease of the phloem. It's plugging up the phloem. So it's the way the sugar is created in the leaves and then moved into the fruit. It's not the sugars aren't getting into the fruit. So the fruit will never taste good. You'll have less seeds if you've got a seeded variety. So that's the healthy fruit seeds. Those are the diseased fruit seeds. So, but again, it's a DNA test that they do. So, and that's only done in California in the state lab, well, at some university labs, and the Citrus Research Board lab in Riverside. Too. They can do it too, but they're mostly doing groves. CDFA is doing the homeowner stuff. So, but we can set it up and get it tested if we have a real definite suspect. Yes?
Is there a cost to the test?
No.
So it's sponsored by the state to pay for the test?
Right. Right. Yeah. What you would do would be like run it through my lab and I would look at it and go, yeah, this is suspicious, or no, this is not, because we're not going to make them do the test on, on junk, you know. So, yes.
So did you say that the disease has been reported in Florida and Texas?
Yes. Yes, it has. It's rampant in Florida. It's very bad in Florida. As a matter of fact, I think I got that slide coming up. So,
Are they having to pull their trees out?
yes. There is, it kills the tree. There's only one thing you can do when you get that is pull it out. It's just, if you leave it, it's just inoculum for the insect to go feed and spread the disease. So as soon as you find a tree with it, the only thing you can do is pull it out.
Why are there 3 different subspecies?
They are, yeah, exactly. There are subspecies of this particular bacterium. Asiaticus is the one from Asia. That's the main one. That's the one we're most concerned about. Africanus is in South Africa. And Americanus is the one that's in Brazil. So
which one did we wind up with?
this is Asiaticus. That's the most common one. Yeah, and that's the one we will probably find first, but you know, there are other strains. You know, they've got it, the disease in Africa, they've got it in Brazil, and that's their strains. So, not yet been successfully managed in any country. It's a very, very difficult disease to manage because the psyllid is very prolific, and so is the bacterium once it gets going. And in Asia, pretty much a citrus tree lasts about 10 years. And so they're doing very similar things in Brazil. They're spraying a lot of chemicals to control the psyllids, and they are scouting, like every day, every week. They've got big trucks with big platforms that they drive through the citrus groves, and if they see any symptoms, the tree comes out. They're just rogue it immediately, you know. So it's going to be a very labor-intensive thing to keep the citrus trees here. Yes?
So when you say take the tree out, is that down to the roots, or is it
Yep.
all of that? Roots and all?
Yep. Rip it out by the roots and burn it. And that's what will happen in groves here, should we ever get it in a grove here in California. That's what they will do. They will come in and bulldoze the affected tree or trees and burn them.
There's a Pakistani predator.
Yeah, what about the soil?
Yeah, but
Question, please?
okay. His question was about the Pakistani predator of the psyllid. That's a biological control method. It will never control all the psyllids. Even if it got 90% of the psyllids, there's still 10% of them out there going from tree to tree to tree if the disease gets spread around here. So it will never completely, you know, it's what they're doing to try to control it in the homeowner situations, but it won't work in a commercial grove. So, you know, that's why they're releasing it in the heavily infested areas where the psyllid is very heavy in LA, in Riverside County, in San Bernardino County, because they don't have anything else they can do. Yeah, okay.
After you remove the tree, do you treat the soil?
No, you do not have to. The question was, after you remove the tree, do you have to treat the soil? And the answer is no. The bacteria does not survive in anything but living plant tissue. So once you've once you've severed the roots from the top, they will eventually die. And the psyllid doesn't feed on the roots anyway. It only feeds on the really soft green tissue. So I don't think the roots are really a threat. Yes?
I'm curious about the term citrus greening.
Mhm.
Does that imply a symptom that we could be looking for?
Yes, it means the fruit never colors up. The fruit stays kind of green, or it stays half green, or something. That was a term that came with the disease from South Africa. The official name is Huanglongbing, though. So it's just, citrus greening is easier for English speakers to say. So, yes, Al.
Argentine ants protect their crops on citrus trees. What do they do when they come across a Huanglongbing?
As
The psyllids.
Psyllid is the same thing.
The psyllid.
Yeah, the psyllids produce also honeydew as in the nymphal stage, so the ants also protect the psyllids. Yeah, just like aphids.
So, yes.
I compost all my green matter.
Mm-hmm.
When I find something that makes me uncomfortable, I have a plastic bag and I throw it in the freezer.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Heaven forbid I should ever come to the point and actually have Huanglongbing. Would I, usually 3 days before my husband starts to complain bitterly, what is it back in the freezer? Would 3 days in the freezer be sufficient to kill the bacteria?
I would think so. I don't know for sure. I don't know if anybody's actually done that, but it certainly wouldn't be attractive to a psyllid anymore after that,
No.
so it wouldn't get spread because it's got to be moved by a psyllid. So,
So I'll just tell my husband he can stay a 4th day. Thank
They
you.
use honey for this, not just her equipment.
yeah, it might not kill the bacteria, but it would make it, unpalatable to a psyllid. So I don't think you'd have any risk of transmission after that.
I
So,
was hoping it would actually kill it, but all right.
yeah, I think the bacteria is a little tougher than that, unfortunately. So, okay. Yeah, the disease was first reported in Brazil in 2004 and quickly took off like crazy, and then was reported for the first time in California this year. I think it was March. They found it the end of February, beginning of March, right in there. So, in Florida, now you've been asking about Florida. The psyllid was first detected in '98. The disease detected in 2005, and they did not do anything to try to control the psyllid at first in Florida. When it got there, they said, oh, we've got the psyllid, but they have no disease, so we're not going to worry about it. And it moved, in that time, it moved all over the whole state, heavily infested the state, and then when the disease was found, it was too late. It was all over the place. And so they are losing their citrus groves. It's been very bad. Economic impact so far, 6,600 lost jobs, 1.3 billion in lost revenue to farmers. Could our farmers take that? I don't think so. And of course there's a multiplier effect because you have, people and packing and truckers and everything. $3.6 billion lost to this disease in Florida so far. So that's why it's the big 900-pound gorilla in the room. It's a big deal. Okay, management of Huanglongbing. Inspect your trees for the psyllid. Tracy talked about that. And the disease. Report suspected trees. That can be to Tracy and I. That can be to CDFA. If tested and found positive, follow the instructions for removal. Get it out of there as quickly as you can. You might want to let some of us come look at it first.
And do they have to do anything to the soil?
No, you do not have to do anything to the soil. Yeah, no, this disease is not soil transmitted. So the psyllids don't live on roots, and it's not a worry with the soil, unlike some of the other things we're going to talk about here. Do not move green parts of the citrus, because that's where the psyllid's going to be. And you know, they're just little bags of bacteria moving over to spread it around. Do not import citrus cuttings from your friend at the, you know, your local garden exchange. You know, be sure that any cuttings only come from a certified clean source that's been tested and is clean. And that includes leaves for cooking. We get people bringing in, you know, lime leaves, Indian curry leaves. These are all types of citrus. They get caught by the dog team bringing this stuff in with psyllids on it. I'd say almost every day. Because we get flashes from airports and stuff of what they're catching in the airports and at the border station and stuff. And the USDA sends out, they're catching curry leaf and stuff on citrus. Well, it's even come over from Mexico on cilantro. The insect's there. It's not using it as a host, but it's coming over on Mexican cilantro every day. Every day they're catching it at the border stations. So, yes?
I'm a little confused about the symptoms. I think you were showing us the symptoms of the Huanglongbing.
Correct.
What are the symptoms just of the psyllid itself if it's not infected?
Not much. Not much. Little bunny ears, kind of, because they deform the very smallest leaves. And so there'll be like a notch in it, or they'll look like, they call them little rabbit ears. But it's not very obvious. Yes?
Somebody must be working on an antibiotic for citrus trees.
Yes, they don't really want to use it. There are antibiotics, I mean, because they have to be injected into the woody material. It's and you have to inject it every year. So eventually you cause enough scarring on the trunk to have problems. They really don't want to use antibiotics that work on humans in the food supply because then eventually the bacteria is going to get resistant, and then you'll get an antibiotic resistant bacteria, and they swap their DNA all the time, and that it causes a threat to people too, is what happens when you do that a lot. So as they're trying to back off even feeding antibiotics to livestock for that very same reason, because then we end up with the antibiotic resistant critters in us. Huh?
Is that really very effective, getting the farmers to stop giving antibiotics to animals?
I don't know. I'm a plant pathologist. I don't do the animal part at all. So, but yeah, that one's not going to work very well. It's just too hard to get it in the plant and get it evenly distributed throughout the whole plant. You know, there's an awful lot to a big citrus tree, and plants don't really have circulatory systems like we do. You know, we can take an antibiotic and it circulates through the whole plant, or through our bodies, through an animal body, but it doesn't work as well in trees or any plant. So.
What about sterile females?
Sterile females. I don't know if they've tried that one yet.
I haven't heard anything like that.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah. Maybe we'll be doing mass releases someday of sterile psyllids. I don't know. There's a lot of work. Well, until 2007, we couldn't even work on it, you know, in the United States. So we haven't had much time to work on it yet. Yes?
Saturday, for the first time, I heard an interesting idea. Apparently, there have been some genes recently recognized in spinach, although the person presenting this last Saturday didn't have any details. So when I asked him, is it working directly on the psyllid or on Huanglongbing, he wasn't sure. But it's going to prompt some research concerning
Putting a spinach gene in a citrus plant, maybe?
But they did say, oh, but then it's genetically modified, so there was going to be some resistance there. But had you heard anything about spinach genes being investigated concerning either they were distasteful to the Asian citrus psyllid or that they interfered with Huanglongbing?
No, I haven't yet.
Because
that long term, that will be our answer, is a resistant plant of some kind. Either resistant to the bacteria, resistant to the psyllid, or a combination thereof. How you get there with that resistance is, you know.
This was fairly credible. It wasn't quite as bizarre as you might think it first sounds. The person presenting this was fairly credible from the rare fruit growers. And in the same breath, he was mentioning a new fly was being recognized. But again, he couldn't answer my question, is it a predator or a parasite for the Asian citrus psyllid?
Yeah.
At least that he knew targeted the psyllid, but he didn't know if it was a parasite or a predator. And had you heard anything about this fly that was recently coming to the fore?
No, unless it's the one that's already been released, you know, in Riverside and San Bernardino and LA.
So is that a predator or a parasite?
It's a
Tracy?
parasite and it's a wasp.
Oh, it's a wasp,
It's
not
a
a
wasp.
fly?
It's a parasitic wasp.
Oh, no, he
That
was
one.
talking about a diptera, or at least that's what he called it, unless he misaddressed it.
Yeah, I don't know, but, you know, we're living interesting times. We're gonna see some very interesting changes here, and, you know, we're gonna have to get very smart to battle these bugs, but we can do it. Okay, and yeah, don't graft your trees with cuttings from untested sources. So, to report a suspect tree, there's the CDFA hotline number again that Tracy already gave you, and there's the Citrus Research Board website, which is also a nice wealth of information, saveourcitrus.org. So, okay, that's Huanglongbing. Another thing that's been popping up, I'm seeing more and more and more of it. And Tracy talked to you about the glassy-winged sharpshooter. That is the vector, you know, that moved into California about 20 years ago. And it's not just for grapes anymore. Let's put it that way. We first saw it about the, you know, the famous Temecula wipeout. That's vineyard in Temecula that just, you know, there were a lot of vineyards in Temecula about 10 years ago that just got wiped out by this disease. Well, it's a little more subtle now, but, and then of course we heard about oleander scorch and the loss of all our oleanders. If you've gone north on I-15 lately and looked at the oleander in the median, you're seeing a lot of those dying. That's what it is. So, and think about the economic impacts of these things. It's slow, but eventually somebody's got to pay to rip all those things out and pay to put something else back in. Yes?
They're replanting those with more oleanders. Is there some kind of new oleander that's not effective?
Not that I know of.
They're
No.
also replanting with iceberg roses. They're dying. Replanting them.
Oh, well, that wouldn't have been my first choice, but yes.
Is there a problem if you have it to just leave it in and wait till it dies and then take it out, or should you?
Well, again, it's a source for the sharpshooter to come and feed on and then jump to another bush and feed on. So it's a source of inoculum for it, but more people.
I've seen some people in my neighborhood that have like cut them down to the bottom, to the ground, and now they're sprouting up again.
Mm-hmm.
Like they think.
Some people think they got rid of it that way, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And if you have an olive tree nearby, well, let's keep going here.
Question just on colors though, because what I'm seeing is that the pink seems to be much more at risk than the white. Because we have both,
I don't know.
and I'm seeing the white look pretty good, but the pink is like.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's the same strain. If you have olive trees, pretty little olive trees, but they seem to be not doing so well this year. You know, they're kind of losing their leaves, fading out. Got some dieback, this kind of stuff. You might want to rip those oleanders out if you want to protect your olives, because oleander and olive, it's the same strain of bacteria that goes to them both. And we're seeing, I'm getting a lot, I got a lot of olive samples all this summer in the lab, and the vast majority of them tested positive.
And is it both fruit-bearing and non-fruit-bearing olive?
Yeah, this bacterium isn't fussy about what it lives in.
Olive's not looking good.
No, the olives are not looking good, and
And symptoms are dieback on branches or
mhm.
new
It can look like, yeah, it can
like
look
leaf
like,
scorch.
it's yeah,
Oh,
it's
it is
olive
leaf
leaf scorch. Yes, very, very similar, brown tips. Again, it's kind of fuzzy, it's not as clear as it is in oleander. It's a little harder to diagnose, but if you've got a olive tree declining right now and it's not getting overwatered, you know, they're not watering it 4 times a week, it's probably got olive leaf scorch. which is oleander leaf scorch, which is Pierce's disease. It's Xylella fastidiosa. Yes?
Is this the one that's transmitted by pruning shooters?
No.
Okay.
No, this is transmitted by the glassy wing sharpshooter. Yeah. Well, it could be transmitted by other sharpshooters, but not as well. Because the glassy wing is more omnivorous. It'll eat anything. Yeah. Yes?
Should an olive tree that tests positive for scorch be removed?
Yes. Well, it's not going to survive. It's going to kill it. Scorch inevitably kills whatever it's infecting. And it's just a source of inoculum for other sharpshooters to come and feed on and spread it around. So I would recommend removal. Painful as it is, I've got people going, this is my 100-year-old olive tree from my yard that, you know, my grandmother planted. And I'm like, I know. It's very sad.
And don't take a graft from it.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Is it cat like getting a graft?
Yes.
Is that a problem all over California?
It's certainly all over Southern California right now.
So up to LA?
Yes. Yeah.
Central Valley?
Not so much. They don't have glassy wing sharpshooter in the Central Valley. See, it's wherever the sharpshooter is.
So it's
So.
climate. So it's controlled by climate.
Well,
Sharpshooter.
Well, we're trying to control the spread of sharpshooter by not, you know, they could survive up there.
yeah.
Could, yes.
There have been several isolated, you know, outbreaks of glassy
Yes.
wing sharpshooter in
In the
Sacramento
Central
County and
Yep.
Kern
Napa.
County, I think, and they stomp on it really hard. You know, they waste no time in putting the chemicals on and getting rid of it if they can. So here's an example of the oleanders with oleander leaf scorch, and then look what's right behind them. It's olives. And see that browning in there like that? They're going down too. So especially when olives and oleanders are planted nearby, doesn't look good for the olives that way. So, yeah, and olives aren't the only thing. We're finding it on new things too. The purple leaf plum. We're getting quite a bit of that with leaf scorch.
Now,
Yes.
the glassy wing sharpshooter carries a disease.
Yes.
And what is the disease?
It's leaf scorch in this case.
That's it.
Yeah, or Pierce's disease.
Okay. thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a bacterial thing. And the bacterium's name is Xylella, because that's the one that, as Tracy talked about, lives in the xylem. So,
Is this related to fire blight?
no, it is not related to fire blight. Fire blight is a different bacterium spread by honeybees. But there it's just a contact thing.
We should take that.
I know. Once you get started on all these diseases, you're going, no, how does anything grow? But, you know, plants are tough, we're tough, we're going to figure it out. But anyway, purple leaf plum, we're seeing a lot of that with scorch disease. We're seeing some liquidambar with scorch disease. So,
Around here?
yep, these, yeah. They're slightly different strains, but it's all Xylella fastidiosa, all transmitted by the glassy wing sharpshooter. Yeah. Yeah, so it's jumping around like crazy. And then a brand new one that I didn't have before.
Crape Myrtle.
In case you want to see the sample. These were really textbook symptoms. Now, testing for this disease is only done like July through September. This year I carried it into October because the amount of bacteria, the test isn't really sensitive. And so you need a fairly high amount of bacteria in the plant to do it. And this bacteria thrives in warm conditions. So basically you can test for it in the summer. But then the amount of bacteria in the plant goes down so low in the winter that the test doesn't necessarily work right. So we only test for this in like July to September. So testing for the year is done right now. But yes, Bob.
Could you pass that around?
Certainly.
So everybody gets a chance.
Needs water.
Well, I know. I had to store, all these for a while until I could bring them, because they don't show up every day, but yes.
Is there any way when, of recognizing the difference between the leaf scorch and, say, a salt buildup?
No, the symptoms are very, very similar. If salt is going to be always on the oldest leaves first, because the plant's going to dump extra salt into the oldest part of the plant first. And so if you're seeing the leaf scorch on the new growth, then you've probably, got it. Unless somebody dumped a whole handful of fertilizer under there and really clobbered it. But, so if you're seeing it on the, the leaf scorch symptoms on the new growth, yeah, I'd be worried. But no, because both the problems are a problem of getting water through the vascular system, because the xylem's either plugged up by the bacteria or it's salt, which is, yeah, so either one. The symptoms are very similar. So anyway, yeah, that sample came in just in time for this. I was like, oh man. We haven't had it on Crape Myrtle before, but yes. Well, maybe we didn't get enough of a sample to test. What you need for the test is a minimum of 20 really good, fresh, symptomatic leaves. So a lot of samples we get are 1 or 2 leaves. I can't tell much from that. Yeah, but to send it up to the state lab for testing, I need at least a minimum of 20, mature, symptomatic leaves with the petioles attached. And they got to be really fresh. If they're dried out and crispy, the test won't work either. Yes. Yeah, wait till next July for testing again. So, and by that time you might know for sure.
Pat, have you seen this on the tababuia?
No, I have not seen the disease on tababuia yet, but I don't, since the glassy wing sharpshooter goes to everything woody, it may go to that too. So, okay, what's wrong with this tree?
I don't know, that's a cell tower.
Yeah, exactly. It's a cell phone tower. So because that's the intro to, we're going to go into palm tree diseases now, since Tracy talked about palm weevils. But that one, I just wanted to make sure you could recognize these new weird diseases we're seeing out there. One of the diseases I'm going to talk about is a pest of quarantine significance, and the reason we have that quarantine in California is to protect our date palms. We're one of the few states that actually has date palm orchards and a date production industry in eastern San Diego, eastern Riverside and Imperial counties. So, and I happen to like going to the date festival out there too. So this is why one of these diseases in particular, because it's deadly to date palms, why we have a quarantine on that one, and you're not supposed to move date or palm trees from this area to those date palm rearing areas of Riverside and Imperial counties. Yeah. Some older leaves going first, the Canary Island date palm, older fronds going first, sometimes happening asymmetrically again, not necessarily even on the plant. This is Fusarium wilt of palm, deadly to palm trees. There is no cure for it. All of the Phoenix species will get it, can get it. Yes.
Is that palm considered dead now? I mean, will it die?
It will die.
Okay, so there's no cutting that back.
No, once it gets that disease, you've got it. Yeah, they're
not coming out of the top.
Correct. One. Correct. This is not the weevil. This is a fungus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this is we're talking diseases here now. Tracy gave you.
Call Pat when you see this.
Yeah.
There it is again. Another big tree going down.
Now, what was this one called?
This is Fusarium wilt.
Fusarium wilt.
This is Fusarium wilt. And this is the reason I think our Canary Island date palms are doomed in Southern California. It first showed up, San Diego County was the first place to get it in the United States in the 70s. And it's been spreading ever since.
By the chainsaws.
Right. This is the disease I call chainsaw massacre of palm trees.
Oh, it's spread by chainsaw. Pruners.
It's spread on pruning equipment, yes. Yeah, it's spread on pruning equipment. So.
Is this the same Fusarium wilt that will take down your tomatoes, or is it different?
No, this is a different one. Yeah.
So in other words, you won't kick yourself later if you planted a tomato underneath it and your
Nope.
palm gets sick because you didn't.
Nope.
Right.
No, this one only goes to Phoenix species. So we've got it. We've seen it on Reclinata. You know, we've seen it on some of the others, but not as commonly. It's really the Canary Island date palm that it gets the worst.
That little bit of good news.
And the first indication is it on one frond, it might be just on one side of the frond.
Yeah, thank you for that. Symptoms, you'll see it starting on a frond. I know it's a bad kind of bad slide. It's going to start at the base where the frond attaches to the tree, and it's going to go up one side of the palm. The symptoms are so that you can have this half brown, half green frond, and then it's going to work its way back from the tip down to the rest of the frond. And this is the best kind of sample to sample for getting the disease out. I don't want those old, dried up, dead brown fronds. I want a fresh one. I want one that's half green. And then, of course, if you cut it across the cross-section, you're going to see that brown coloration. Also, that's also another symptom of the disease. So the whole vascular system, again, this is an organism. The fungus lives in the vascular tissue, in the water-carrying tissue of the plant, and plugs it up. So, yeah.
So if you have a tree that looks like that, has the regular parts of it dying, what else could it be?
Good. You guys are great. Leading me right at first. This is what the Fusarium spores look like, just to show you. Fusarium makes up to 3 or 4 or 5 different kinds of spores, depending on what stage it's in. But the ones that you'll see the most are these little single microconidia. A fungal spore is called a conidium. The plural is conidia. So you can see the microconidia, which are one cell, and then you can see the macroconidia, which have many different cells depending on the species. But they're usually this classic canoe shape. So.
But we'll never see them, they're tiny.
Right. Yeah. You won't see them unless you're coming over with me and looking through my microscope.
Okay.
So anyway, that's what the spores of Fusarium look like. That's to remind me that it's chainsaw massacre. That's how it's getting spread around. It's spread on pruning tools. And the very best pruning guys will use a handsaw to prune these trees. You know, and they'll use a different blade even per each tree, or clean them in between, because you can clean them with bleach if you get all the, you know, bleach or hospital disinfectant if you get all the particles off. But of course, they're more expensive because it takes a lot more work to do that than to come through with a chainsaw going, yeah. So, but then these trees, taking them down and replacing them, you know, that's like 10 grand. So they're very expensive trees. So. Anyway, other things that can cause palm trees to go down, or various diseases. Pink rot. I see a lot of the trees with Fusarium also have pink rot because this one is also spread on pruning tools. And that's this pink stuff coming out of the base here. On a queen palm, it'll rot the trunk right out like that. So this one isn't fussy. It will go to nearly any palm tree.
And it's another chainsaw?
Yes. It's also transmitted on pruning tools. And if you want to see, I got some excellent examples of it up here. So if you want to see pink rot on the stem, I'll pass these around. So a tree can have more than one fungal disease at the same time. It can have Fusarium and pink rot at the same time. Yeah, you can smell that one. And it's very pink. So yes.
Is it usually at the base of the tree near the ground, or it could be anywhere?
It can be anywhere. It can be up in the top, in the bud, it can be on the young growth, especially on younger trees. It can be in the vascular tissue, just like, those were samples that came in for, probably for Fusarium testing, but they're so loaded with pink rot, we can't even tell if there's Fusarium in there or not, because the pink rot grows faster than Fusarium. Fusarium, when you're trying to get it out, grows slow. Pink rot grows fast. So when it gets covered with pink rot like that, we just go, you could have Fusarium too, but we can't tell for sure.
All the palms?
Pink rot will go to all the palms. Fusarium only goes to Phoenix species. So, okay, pink rot, Nolantha olive or messini is the name of the fungus. Big names, complicated names. Leaf spot, very similar symptoms also. This is Graphiola phoenicis, Graphiola leaf spot. This is one you can tell by feel. When you feel the pinnae like that, it's rough and bumpy. They're actually raised, got a sample of that too. Big raised bumps. And all you have to do is just feel this side of it, and you can feel the bumps coming up. And if you want them to make spores, because that's what they're doing here, it's the spores are coming right out of all those raised bumps where you see those tan things. You just put it in water or put it in a moist chamber, get it like a plastic bag with a wet paper towel, and just keep it real humid for a couple of days. Spores come tearing right out. So that's another one, though, that the symptoms, it causes premature death of the fronds. The symptoms can look on Phoenix canariensis, so the symptoms will look like Fusarium wilt. So, but this one doesn't kill them, it just makes it look really stunted. Yes, this one's windborne. Not really, no. That's the other problem with a lot of these tree diseases. They're too big to treat. I mean, how do you get up there to treat a big old palm tree? They're very difficult. Okay, Serenomyces, rachis blight on several different kinds of palms. Again, that's fan palm of some kind, but the symptoms can be really similar. You can't really tell, but this is the one. On this one, we have that disease here also. And this is another one you can do with a tactical feel. On this one, if you look at this part and feel it, these are the raised bumps of the fungus coming up through the tissue. So again, these are the spore-bearing structures coming right up through the hard wood of the tissue, and you can feel it. It's kind of bumpy and sandpapery. So that's what this one is. It's Serenomyces, other fungi that cause very similar symptoms. You don't need to remember the names, just rachis blight, Yeah? Fatal? Yes. Not so much. Causes premature death of older fronds, but not necessarily fatal to the tree. No. But sometimes if you have some of these other diseases, it might mean that the tree is weak for some reason. It's not getting fed right, it's not getting watered right. So think about, fixing that, whatever it takes. It might take more water, less water, fertilizer, take better care of the tree. So that's the rachis blight. And another one, diamond scale. It's not a scale, this is a fungus. Yes. Fungus. And here, all these black things are the spore-bearing structures. So here's another one, and that one's really easy to identify, and it only goes to Washingtonia prolifera and its hybrids. Usually along the coast, it does better in cooler, wet weather because this palm likes hot, dry weather. And again, it's not fatal, but it just keeps at it, and the plant keeps losing the oldest leaves first prematurely.
Can you treat it with anything?
Fungicides don't work very well, again, on this. It's really tough to treat. If it was a very small tree in a nursery, you could probably treat it and get good coverage. But on a big tree along the coast,
just take it out.
You could take it out. Yeah. So there's your, you know, palm diseases primer. Okay, we're gonna switch up to another vascular Wilt disease, another Fusarium, but we haven't seen this one. This was one from last summer, I think, brand new. Mimosa trees in some neighborhoods started going down. We haven't seen that before. And this one turned out to be a Fusarium, very similar to the way that the palm trees is. So,
thank you.
It's another wilt disease caused by another Fusarium oxysporum, but this one is pernicious, so they gave it the name of perniciosum. So on mimosa trees, and actually we were culturing that one and doing it just the same way that we were doing it for the palm trees, and we could get the Fusarium out fairly easily. So symptoms are the same. The tree starts going downhill. It looks wilty. You've got twig dieback. And when you cut into the bark and the trunk, you've got brown streaking there of some kind. So if your mimosa trees, your albizias are going down, you might think that, think about this one too. It's a disease of southeastern United States that is now showing up here. And I don't know how it got here. I don't know why, but it's here.
Does it ooze out onto the surface of the bark?
No, it doesn't really, the trunk doesn't really ooze.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It could be a whole lot of things before you cut into it.
Right. Yeah. It could be a whole lot of it. It could be root rot, it could be, who knows?
Is there anything you can do about that one?
Nope. No, that's the problem with these Fusarium diseases. Your answer long term will be a resistant variety. But until they get there, there just isn't anything you can do. Yes?
Is the problem of mimosa affect the jacarandas also?
The question was, does the problem with the mimosas affect jacarandas also? And as far as I know, no. I have not seen a wilt type disease on jacaranda yet.
Is it the same genus?
Albizia and no, this is, oh, I don't know, well, they're not the same genus, so,
What's a pea?
yeah, right, the oh no, the albizias are in the pea family, jacaranda's in a different family even.
I was told they were fine arborists, they were related.
Have the same kind of
I don't
leaf.
think so. I don't think so. So, yes.
In the seed pod.
Yes, that one would be. Now, this is a different disease. Wait till we get. Let's finish with the mimosa. And all of the Fusarium wilt diseases now, like the palm trees and the mimosa tree, it also contaminates the soil. This is one where the soil is contaminated, and don't plant another plant of the same type back in there. So when you take out your palm tree, don't go putting another Phoenix canariensis back in that same hole. It will die. Same with the mimosa wilt. Don't put another mimosa back in that same hole. It will die. So, okay, we're switching. This is a disease that's not here yet. And Tracy talked about it with the beetle. But this is one since, Fallbrook is the avocado capital of the world, or at least California, or at least San Diego County. So this is a disease in the southeastern United States, transmitted by a tiny little ambrosia beetle that is not here yet, but we're watching for it. So if you see avocado trees with a black vascular system, the trees, again, it's a wilt disease, so the branches are dying back, leaves are wilting. It can look like root rot, it could look like a lot of different things, but the tree's not doing well, and the vascular tissue is turning black. Be afraid. We want a sample of that right away. We want a sample of that immediately. So this is the ambrosia beetle right there. It's about as long as Frank's nose here. It's a very tiny beetle. You probably will not ever see the beetle. But yeah, it's a very tiny beetle, and Tracy talked about this, how they have a mycangia in there, and then they inoculate the tree with the fungus. This fungus, that's the fungus, it's called a Rafflesia. So,
Does the tree wilt?
is
it just wilt?
It just wilts. It dies. This is a fatal disease of avocado trees. So it was first found on Red Bay in Georgia, and that's another tree in the same family. But all of the trees in this family, in this plant family where the avocado is, are susceptible. So, okay, healthy Red Bay. And the beetle bites it. And you get the crown wilt, a little vascular discoloration. You get maybe some sawdust and insect droppings coming out.
Actually, the frass tubes are diagnostic. See those little things that come out of the tube? They're, yeah.
Frass tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're diagnostic of that beetle.
Yes.
Yeah, they look kind of like little twigs sticking out of or toothpicks sticking out of the trunk of the tree. So, and then you'll get.
They can't be very big.
They're tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just look like wood droppings, pressed wood droppings.
Yeah, and so they'll be, and so then the vascular streaking will just keep getting worse and worse because the tree is trying to fight off the fungus, and so the tree is killing its own cells. It says, ooh, fungus here, kill that cell and hopefully kill the fungus, and the rest of the fungus goes, yay, dead cells, more food, and it just keeps growing. And so, and then eventually the female beetles emerge and create the whole cycle over and over again. So it's on its way here, it's been spreading. When it was first introduced, this is an insect they think came off of wooding packing material from Asia. You know how we've been buying steamer ships, shipload and shipload and shipload of stuff from Asia, and it's all coming in on wooden pallets. And guess what's living in those wooden pallets? A whole assortment of new beetles that our American trees have no protection against. And of course, their wooden pallets coming from Asia are supposed to be treated or heat treated or kiln treated or something like that first, but some of them obviously aren't.
So is the disease in Asia also then?
Yes. Yes, but it does. Their trees have evolved with it and seem to have some resistance to it. So, but when it's coming here to new American trees, they've never seen this disease before and they're dying. So, and it's going to all members of I think it's Myrtaceae. So bay laurel would be susceptible, and that would be the only good thing you can say about bay laurel is, because right now it's a vector for sudden oak death, and if we get that disease here and it starts taking out a lot of the bay laurels, it might, slow the sudden oak death epidemic. That's
It's freezing pretty hard to make lemonade out of that.
I'm trying. But I can't leave you with, a total downer. We've had, bad stuff happening here, but trust us, we're still good. Californians are smart and we're inventive, and we can figure out a way to do agriculture here. So one way or another, there will still be agriculture in San Diego County. So have heart, it won't all die.
What did you say the bay laurel was the vector for?
The sudden oak death, Phytophthora ramorum, which sporulates prolifically on its leaves. It doesn't hurt the bay laurel at all. The bay laurel goes, so what? But the sudden oak death organism sporulates prolifically on its leaves, and then the spores blow to an oak, a tan oak, and it kills them. Now that's not a disease we have here, so that's why we didn't do that one. But because when somebody calls you and says, my oak tree's dying, I was looking on the internet and I think I've got that sudden oak death thing. In Southern California, probably not. You've probably got an oak borer situation. But because that disease has not established south of Monterey County, it's a disease of cool, wet conditions. So, yeah, it's a disease of redwood country. Nice, drippy, wet fog stuff. And where our oaks are, you know, in the eastern mountains for the most part, where it's 100 degrees all summer long, it's not a disease that's going to establish here, or is at least expected to. So that's what I've had for the day. I wanted to, you know, if you've got time, I wanted to discuss a couple of, yes?
The rosemary.
Yeah, what is that?
Ah, did you see that pattern on there? Where, and I know it's hard now because it's all dried out. But on the rosemary, the lower part of the plant was very green, and then the top part is very green, and in the middle you've got that nice brown band.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah.
See the brown band?
Now that is not something that's caused biologically. That is not a disease. You know, that's not caused by a fungus. They don't make patterns like that. You know, you usually get a disease that hits the tip and works back, or it starts at the roots and works up. Something that takes out the middle stretch, but doesn't kill the tissue because this part stayed green. You know, this part did not die back. So you got to think, that was the first thing I thought of, was it got sprayed. Somebody went by and sprayed it. And eventually it turned out that this was from a commercial planting. It was actually in front of the Vista Conference Center. And they'd done some trenching. They were doing some construction there, and they did some trenching in front of the rosemary. And I think this is the heat exhaust from the trencher. It hit it with a, you know, the heat, the exhaust came out, and it browned all the needles, but didn't kill the vascular system. And that's why you got that weird pattern. It was just, you know, this ribbon of brown right through the middle of it. And I think that's where the exhaust blew out. So I had to show you that one because you're going to see weird things and weird patterns. And, you know, somebody's going to call you up and ask you about this stuff. Keep your mind open to, okay, what did you do in the yard there? What was going on? Oh, trenching? Who thought to ask about trenching? You know? Yes?
Is anything killing rosemary other than trenching?
Not that I know of, no. No, so, and then we're still getting a lot of symptoms. This is a Bocarnia, a ponytail palm. And I think this one just dried out in August and September. I think it just cooked. Yeah, we're still seeing a lot of symptoms from our hot 2 months there.
Mine's coming back.
Yay!
The whole top went black and brown, and now there's little greens coming up from the...
All right, well, then there's hope for this one. So that's. So anyway, I don't know if you had a chance to look at everything up here. We got aloe mite. This is on aloe. This is mite damage. All these kinds of red symptoms and the gnarly looking stuff, the big galls there. So you can pass that around. What else have we got here? Oh, I won't pass through. No, were these the pink rot ones? Yeah.
Have you ever seen the mite?
It's microscopic. It's really tiny. More pink rot. In case you didn't get to see the pink rot, there's lots more pink rot. There's plenty of pink rot around. So, and we've got a couple rusts up here. There's rust on fig and rust on purple leaf plum and on, no, it was beauty plum, and rust on peaches. In case you hadn't seen rust on the leaves of those. It's the same rust on both of these plants, but.
And what about the fig?
This is fig rust, also a rust. No, completely different organisms. This is Cerotelium fici, and this is Transchellia discolor.
Take the leaves off and trash them?
Yep. Yeah, this is a good time of year when they're losing their leaves. Take these out and trash them right now. Don't leave them under the tree to splash back up on the new growth next spring.
Can they be composted?
Yes.
Aloe mite.
Yes. Yeah, you could do that. Rust diseases, of course, are spread when the spores blow around in the wind. So, okay, any more questions?